Hello, everybody, and welcome to the third part of my Invincible My Hero Academia What If. This part has by far been the most difficult to make, at least at the time of writing it. At this point, I have the script fully finished, so you can expect the series to end hopefully soon. um, and thank you all for the continued support. A special thank you again to Zether, who also continues to support me and make this dream of mine seem possible. um, but yeah, thank you so much for coming to check this out. And without any further ado, let's get right into the video. We cut to Ochako's POV. She's sitting in class with all the other students who had passed their exams. She's talking to Froppy when suddenly there's a thunderous crash. The building starts to collapse, and she's barely able to get out of the classroom with the help of her fellow students. When she emerges from the half-collapsed doorway, she sees the rest of her class running for the stairs to get out. Ida leads the way, making sure the path is safe, until another crash shakes the building. Many of the students are knocked back, but when Ochako looks to Ida, she sees him hanging from where the pathway had once been, dangling from a piece of rebar. Her heart drops, and for a beat, she's paralyzed. Before her heroic nature kicks in, she's able to get to her feet and, grabbing her side in pain, makes her way to the hanging boy. "If I can just touch him, he'll be safe! Just one tap!" she thinks to herself. Her confidence rises. But then, he slips. It happened in slow motion, but she still wasn't fast enough to reach him. She scrambles to the edge, and to her relief, watches as Deku descends to the ground with Ida. She hadn't noticed him before, but now that he's here, they're saved for sure, she thinks to herself, until she spots Omni-Man land beside Deku, and in less than a second, crushes Ida's skull. She stifles a gasp before ducking for cover, hoping she hadn't revealed herself. After a moment, she looks back at the gruesome sight, tears welling in her eyes, and true animalistic dread and horror curdling in her stomach. She spots Deku fall to his knees. She can hear him down there, his cries of anguish. She then watches as Deku squares up against his father, only to be beaten down with a punch that shakes the building. She sees Omni-Man grab the back of Deku's neck and fly off, hearing the crashing and screaming echoing throughout the building as they continue their assault. At this moment, all Ochako can do is pray that Invincible will save her. In her fear and desperation, he's the only person she can hope for. We now cut to Bakugo, who had been taking an exam when off in the distance he hears a giant shockwave come from the direction of the main campus. Instantly, he stops fighting Cementos, and they both look toward the school. "We need to get over there!" Bakugo shouts as he readies himself to fly over. "Wait, boy!" Cementos says before forming a dome around himself and Bakugo. "This could be severe, and I can't in good conscience send a student into a potentially dangerous situation. You need to stay right here while I head over there." "To hell with that! I'm out of here!" Katsuki says before blasting an AP shot at the dome and flying out before Cementos can repair it. He flies with vigorous fervor in his attempt to get to campus. He can feel the recoil of his explosions painfully in his wrists, but something is driving him beyond his normal limits. Then, the school comes into sight, and Bakugo feels the blood drain from his face and hands. The school is practically falling apart. Things only get worse as he gets closer, and over the low rumble of his explosions, he can hear the screams and crashing coming from inside the school. His hopes that this was just some kind of natural disaster had been completely destroyed. He explodes through the collapsed main entrance, seeing many students cornered and taking cover inside. "Get out now! I'm going in for anyone else!" he yells assertively. Like fleeing rodents, the students flock out of the door as Bakugo quickly makes his way further into the building, exploding the debris blocking his path and making an exit route for anyone else trapped inside. He can hear the crashing growing louder as he makes his way closer, preparing himself for a fight. He bursts into the giant cafeteria, where he sees Omni-Man ramming Deku through the building and stomach-churningly through his fellow students, leaving a bloody spray in their wake. Bakugo sees the horror in Deku's eyes as his body eviscerates his friends and classmates. The pair burst out of the building, flying off to who knows where. It's then that the horror of what Bakugo had just witnessed finally hits him. His shock wears off, and he bites his tongue and resists the overwhelming urge to vomit, reeling and falling to his knees, looking around at the carnage, before looking up and seeing a blood-soaked Todoroki standing off to the side, his attention transfixed on a similarly blood-stained Russian nesting doll. Now cutting to Todoroki's perspective, we see him walking through the hallway with Momo Yaoyorozu. The two of them had become somewhat friendly during their exam and were talking as they made their way to the cafeteria. Todoroki is finally coming out of his shell a bit, as he talks about how he used to play with Russian nesting dolls with his mom all the time when he was a kid. He tosses the doll up in the air and catches it, the flashbang inside still rattling around. "Whoa, maybe don't do that! Those things are still alive," Momo says anxiously. "Oh, I'd forgotten. Sorry," Todoroki says, somewhat receding a bit. "How about this? I'll make you some nesting dolls that won't blow up," she says as she produces a new set of dolls, now proper nesting dolls. "I'll trade ya," she says as she grabs the armed doll from Todoroki's hand and replaces it with one she had just made. "Thanks," Todoroki says, not knowing how to properly show his appreciation. "Anyway, you were talking about your mom?" Momo asks as they reach the cafeteria. "Oh, yeah. Well, these dolls remind me of her. The rattling inside specifically, actually. It was an old doll set from her grandmother, and the smallest dolls had been lost for years. But she'd always replace it with a piece of chocolate," he said sincerely. "That's really sweet," Momo says, seeing the normally icy boy's softer side. "God, I haven't seen her in years. Not since she had her breakdown. Although, with my dad gone, maybe I should see her. It's not like I have parents to spare," Todoroki says, half ironically. "I think that's a really good..." Momo goes to say, before she's cut off by a giant crash. The whole building shakes. Todoroki makes an ice pillar and holds up the ceiling of the cafeteria, but it won't hold, especially not with the shaking continuing. "We need to get out of here!" he yells to Momo. She had somewhat gotten separated from Todoroki when the first crash came, and he now runs towards her, holding the nesting doll. Then the rumbling gets louder, and in an instant, he watches in slow motion as Deku's body shreds Momo Yaoyorozu to pieces, spraying her blood all over the icy boy and the doll he was carrying. The force from the pair of Viltrumites flying sends Todoroki soaring across the room. He watches Invincible's body being used to decimate his friends. Todoroki feels his head throbbing with pain as his stomach churns, looking back at the doll, thinking about the girl who not a minute ago was alive and talking to him. He looks up from the doll and sees Bakugo's horrified face. Now, we cut to about a week after Omni-Man's attack. With the help of pro heroes, UA is able to rebuild quickly. Normally, parents would be questioning if UA was to blame for this, but with the help of the UA Trader and the League of Villains, the footage of Omni-Man's attack on the school was released to the public. That, combined with all the footage from his rampage across Japan, had people blaming one of two people, Omni-Man or Invincible. At the hospital, Deku stirs for the first time in days, and his mother is there waiting. She's asleep, but the moment Deku opens his mouth, and his raspy words come out, her eyes dart open, and she scrambles over to her son. She gives him some water, and as he tries to speak, hugs him and begins to weep. Deku hugs her back, but he can't bring himself to cry, even though he feels like he should. He just feels empty. Several days later, Deku and Inko are talking, and she's trying to convince him to return to school. "Mom, I can't go back there. Hundreds of people were killed during my fight with Dad. They'll hate me," he says defiantly. "Honey, you need to go back to some semblance of normalcy. It's not good to stay cooped up at home all the time. And they won't hate you. You saved the entire planet. Stop pretending like this is your fault," Inko insists. "That's not what the news thinks. A lot of people blame me. They say it was my fault. So many people died, and they're right. Maybe I could have done something different and saved everyone, Izuku says, guilt playing in his voice. You can't do that to yourself. Getting caught up in the coulda, shoulda, woulda. No one knows what you've been through. You're a hero, son, and no one can take that away from you. I guess you're right, Deku says half-heartedly, conceding to his mother and heading off to school. He feels like a criminal as he steps onto campus, keeping his head down, but he can tell people are staring at him. It feels like gravity increases tenfold with every step. And when he makes his way to the classroom, he can hardly muster the strength to open the door. However, eventually he does, and he can hear the class fall silent with his entrance. Only now does he take his eyes off the ground and looks up at the now sparsely populated classroom. The only students left, presumably the only ones who survived the attack, were Aoyama, Tsuyu, Ochako, Kaminari, Kirishima, Jiro, Tokoyami, Hagakure, Todoroki, and Bakugo. The whole class stares at Deku. Jiro, Tokoyami, and Todoroki all glare daggers into Deku. The others, including Bakugo, look on in pity. The silence is broken by the squeaking of Todoroki's chair as he slowly pushes it out and makes his way over to Deku, getting inches from his face. Why in the hell would you ever think you'd be welcome back here? He says bluntly. Hey! Ochako yells from the other side of the room, indignant at the remark. He's right. Deku's practically a traitor, Jiro retorts. Deku says before stopping and looking away. What? No excuse? That's just what I'd expect from you, Todoroki spits. Wasn't bad enough that your dad killed mine, but then you destroy the school and kill all of our classmates? Are you here to rub it in? Stop, Todoroki! Ochako yells again before Tokoyami yells at her. Shut your mouth, woman! Izuku needs to hear this. It's the least he could do, he says with vitriol. You fly around acting like some big hero, but you don't know the first thing about being one. You walk the walk and talk the talk, but at the end of the day, you're just the son of a space Nazi who killed thousands of people. You're just like your father, throwing your weight around like there won't be any consequences, weaseling your way into other people's lives just to rub salt in their wounds. Why don't you fly off to Jupiter like your father did? Todoroki says, inching ever closer to Izuku with each insult. I'm not like my dad! Izuku yells, slamming his hands down on a desk, crushing it down and warping it with the imprint of his fist. He reels back, realizing how his outburst looks. He looks up from his hands and sees the fear in many of his classmates' faces. That's right. Show us the real you. The one we all know is itching to get out, Todoroki says venomously. I'm sorry, Deku says before quickly leaving the room. Feeling pride, but also still a burning, seething rage, Todoroki turns around to head back to his desk. But as he does, he sees Ochako aggressively walking towards him. She winds back her arm, and before Shoto can register what's happening, she punches him in the nose. Hard, sending him to the ground with a gushing broken nose. You bitch! Todoroki cries before grasping his nose in pain. Did that make you feel strong, saying those horrible things to Izuku? You try to act like you're better than him, but you know what you did during the attack? Absolutely jack shit! You are a weak, useless coward. I watched Deku try to save Ida, try to save all of us. His father used him as a living battering ram to try and teach him a lesson. How do you think it felt for Deku? None of you know what he's been through, and he's the only goddamn person in this class who's shown any amount of heroism. Ochako yells out at everyone. While she's giving her speech, Bakugo slips out of the room and follows Deku. You have no idea what you're talking about. If Deku hadn't been there, this wouldn't have happened at all. It was his dad, his fight, his responsibility, Jiro retorts. What the hell are you talking about? You saw the same footage that I did. If Izuku wasn't here, everyone on the planet would be slaves to an alien empire. Omni-Man felt zero remorse, mowing us down like grass. His son was the only person who could have saved us, and he did. And the next time I hear one of you saying something like that to Deku again, I'll break your nose too! She screams at the class, stomping her foot. Todoroki scoffs and leaves the room, heading for the nurse, while everyone else shuts their mouth. Cutting to Deku, he stands on the rooftop of UA, looking down at the ground before being startled by Bakugo speaking up behind him. I know I told you to take a swan dive off a roof not too long ago, but I think you missed your opportunity for that, considering you survived a fall from the atmosphere. Bakugo jokes. Yeah, somehow I doubt you're not the only one who carries that sentiment. Deku says listlessly. Listen, nerd, I didn't come up here to encourage you or give you a pep talk. I think brown-haired girl and your mom both have that covered. I just don't want to see you losing priorities. Priorities? Do I need to spell it out for you? Christ, you're still dumb as ever. For our whole lives, all you ever wanted to do was be a superhero. You and I are the same in that regard. But for me, it was because I was strong that I wanted to be a hero. I thought to be a hero, you needed to embody strength, and those who were weak had no place in trying at all. That's why I was so insulted by you trying to be something that you clearly weren't. It meant that everything I believed about being a hero and being myself was wrong, Bakugo says before being interrupted. What are you saying? Izuku questions impatiently. I wasn't done talking! I'm saying that I was wrong. Maybe to be a hero, you don't just need to be strong. When I got my powers, I used them to physically dominate my problems. Nothing I didn't like couldn't be solved with force, and I had fooled myself into believing I was the strongest. But it's clear to me now that isn't true, Bakugo admits. Kacchan, I don't know what you're saying. This doesn't make any sense. My powers are the problem. My strength, it's too much. No matter what I do, people always suffer, Deku insists. Jesus, Deku! I'm saying that you aren't your father. I'm saying that if you were, you'd treat me like how I treated you. But that's not who you are. You're that nerdy, soft-spoken, antisocial dweeb that I've known my whole life. You have restraint and a good heart. And most importantly, you're selfless. So don't let anyone else tell you who you are. Because one day, I know that Invincible will be the name of the world's #1 hero, he says oddly confidently. Bakugo, I don't know what to say. Don't say anything! And don't tell anyone I said that! I don't want any of these other weaklings thinking they're stronger than me too. I don't say that lightly, Izuku, Bakugo says before turning around and making his way back to class. Before he leaves through the rooftop door, Deku speaks up. I thought you said you weren't going to give me a pep talk. You can take that swan dive now, replies Bakugo coldly, closing the door behind him. Deku thinks about the fiery-tempered boy and what he had said. Maybe he was right. Deku had gotten so caught up in his father that he couldn't focus on himself. He can't bring back the people that are dead, but he can still save so many more. Now with his internal self-worth somewhat more balanced, Deku makes his way back to class. When he walks through the door, he receives a lot of the same glares, but nobody says anything. He sits down near Bakugo and Ochako and settles in, trying to feel normal. Aizawa shows up and starts the class, maintaining his professionalism. Firstly, I'd like to address the tragedy that occurred a week ago. I want to thank every student who was there for their bravery, perseverance, and tenacity. We lost so many, and we will mourn them every day that we move forward. But life goes on for those of us who remain. And in their memory, I dedicate myself to each and every one of you. You will be heroes yet, and carry on their memories and spirit with every life you save. I don't want to discuss this topic for too long, but I don't want to hear any blame being thrown around. This isn't up for discussion, and even if it were, it's not conducive for a school environment. With all that being said, Aizawa says before being interrupted by the door opening with a bandaged nosed Todoroki walking through the door. Are you alright? asks Aizawa before Todoroki pauses for a second, looking over at Ochako, who gives him a death glare. He turns to Aizawa. I tripped and hit my nose on the stairs this morning, he says with some difficulty, not speaking another word before sitting down. After this, Aizawa announces the forced retreat, and that with the tragic events of the week prior largely reducing the amount of students in the hero course, the school has decided to combine Class 1A and 1B. Also, every student had retroactively been given full marks on their finals. The events that they had to live through were more of a test than the school could have ever asked them to take on. The class feels strange about going back into hero course work like this, but after they're able to push past that feeling, they feel excited about the upcoming field trip. The trip wouldn't be for another week. Nothing particularly interesting happened to Deku in that time, so I'll explain who of Class 1B survived the attack, and who will now be joining Class 1A. Kendo, Ibara, Jiroda, Tsunotori, Tetsu, Fukidashi, Monoma, and Shinzo would all be combining with Class 1A and joining them on the bus ride to the forest training arc. We now cut to All for One's shadowy facility once more. Tell me, Doctor, are the subjects going to be ready for Phase 1? We're on the clock, you know, All for One says playfully. Well, there have been mixed results, says Uchiko hesitantly. Do elaborate, replies the Dark Lord. I've had success in deriving a superhuman formula that, when injected into a Nomu, is able to enhance its strength greatly, the doctor says before trailing off. But, All for One infers, but the saturation of Viltrumite to human DNA can't be any more than 1 to 4. The Viltrumite genome is just far too dominant and takes over the host body like a cancer, even through super regeneration. It's an exponential process, but I've found that at 25%, the super regeneration is able to fend it off, he says, half assuringly. This sounds like good news. But tell me, how much does it increase their strength? Inquires All for One. Well, that's the problem. The Viltrumite DNA limits the amount of quirks we can fit into a Nomu, and it already isn't a 100% chance that the DNA is accepted by the host anyway. Basically, the only way to get value out of this strength boost is to have a base strength multiplier quirk on top of that. That, and the cost of super regeneration functionally being limited to normal Viltrumite healing capabilities, Uchiko says, strangely specifically. It sounds like you've already got a solution in mind, implies All for One. Indeed. You remember our friend Muscular? Well, when he joined us a couple of months back, I never expected to be running experiments on him. But after many hours of hard work, I believe that he will be the first in a long line of high-end Nomu, the doctor says confidently. High-end, you say? So he retains a personality? Asks All for One. He does, but doesn't seem to remember much of his old life. But his murderous impulses are still there, so he's more or less the same, Uchiko says backhandedly. Excellent! Then prepare him and the other squad members for their mission. It won't be more than a day from now, and if we hope to secure this army, we'll need the boy, All for One says, leaning back in his chair as the doctor nods and leaves. We now cut to the arrival of the new Class 1A, as they're instructed to make it to the camp by the end of the day. Here's where you'd normally expect to see Deku decimating dirt monsters or just flying to the camp in an instant, but he doesn't feel that fire to perform in this activity. So, for the most part, he drifts behind his classmates, helping them out when they need him, but not being much of an aggressor. Ultimately, they make it through the forest with little to no difficulty. It's at the camp where Deku has his interaction with Koda, but as he goes to punch Deku in the nuts, his hand feels like he just punched solid titanium. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I didn't see you down there, kid, Deku says, flustered. Shut up! Kota says as he holds his hand and runs off. Deku asks one of the wild pussycats about Kota, and she explains to him what happened with Kota's parents and why he hates heroes so much. He's not wrong. Being a hero isn't exactly for those who want a family life, Deku says somewhat coldly as he ends the conversation there. For the most part, training camp goes the same as normal, with Deku training his strength and speed nonstop, using specialized equipment they had made for him, similar to Season 3 of Invincible. Those of his class, and even his teachers who did not despise him, came to watch his training. It was quite the spectacle, with him easily lifting mountains of weight. A favorite was him flying to the moon and back, something that everyone had a hard time believing. But generally, the story elements go the same. Deku even has his moment where he finds Kota and tries to empathize with him. "Go away, you stupid hero!" Kota says, looking away from Deku, his legs dangling off the cliff. Deku doesn't try to make Kota come closer. Instead, Deku just sits next to him. For a moment, he stares off, gazing into the mountainside, slowly bringing his view down from the horizon across the vast forest, turning to face Kota. "I can see why you like this spot. It's peaceful," Deku says before turning back to look at the view again. Taken aback, Kota wants to insult him, but he also is confused. He doesn't act like most of the heroes he's talked to or seen. "Why are you bothering me?" asks Kota, trying to get Deku to leave. "I'm here because I know why you hate heroes. I know what happened to your parents," Deku replies plainly. "Yeah? And what about it? I know what happened with your dad," Kota says loudly. Deku's heart beats for a moment, his enhanced perception making the moment drag out for what feels like forever. He felt genuine rage at those words, but he composes himself, keeping those feelings down and breathing. "Exactly. I understand why you feel the way you do. To an extent, I feel the same. Being a hero isn't fun. It's not something you want your family or friends to do. But the media paints things like everything is happy and that we should idolize and want to be that thing," Deku says sincerely. Kota's angry facade drops and he begins to tear up, with Deku clearly having struck a painful chord. "If my parents weren't heroes, they'd still be alive. And I'd be able to grow up like a normal kid. But they just had to die," Kota cries. "I can't tell you you're wrong to say that, Kota. All I can do is tell you why we're heroes, or at least why Deku says before being interrupted. "I don't care! I don't want to hear any excuses. That's what people always tell me. It doesn't change the fact that they're dead," Kota screams before crash. Something had just smashed into the side of the mountain that the boys were sitting on. Kota falls off, but Deku easily catches him with one hand. Deku pulls Kota up close to him, still wearing his hero suit from training earlier. He uses his other hand to pull his mask on, preparing for the worst. As the smoke clears, a pale purple figure wearing a red tank top and black pants stands in a crater of his own making. His hair a pale gray, its ends spiky and splitting. He looked up with one bulging circular eye and one glowing a blazing yellow. Kota instantly recognizes the man, despite his now ghoulish appearance. Muscular Nomu looks up at Invincible and Kota and smiles. "Target spotted," he says jokingly, sounding like a robot. "What? No laughs from the crowd?" he says sadistically after the blank response. That's the guy who killed my parents," Kota says, horrified. "You're sure? He looks more like one of those things called Nomu," asks Deku. "I'm sure. That's him. He didn't look like that, though. I don't know what happened to him to make him look like that. But I could never forget that man," Kota says, his tears starting to run. "Oh my! I don't remember a lot from the good old days, but I do remember that pair of heroes that took my favorite eye. Those were your parents? Then hallelujah! It's not every day I get to experience the joy of killing a whole family," Muscular says, a sadistic smile forming across his face, revealing his teeth stained with a sort of veiny black tar-looking substance. "That's enough!" yells Deku, swiftly kicking Muscular in the face, sending him flying back before deciding to rocket to camp so he could take care of this guy without worrying about Koda. But as Deku begins to fly away, he suddenly feels a crushing grip around his ankle. Looking down, Deku sees Muscular hanging onto his leg, his smile remaining the same. "Don't think you can get away from me that easily, boy!" yells Muscular as he whips his body around, flinging Invincible towards the ground and trees below. Moving at incredible speeds, Deku tries to slow down and wrap his body around Koda to protect him. Slamming into the ground, he creates a sizable crater. "Koda, are you okay?" Deku yells. I'm okay. Koda says, surprised and happy. "Get out of here! I can't fight this guy and protect you at the same time! Get back to camp!" Deku says, letting Koda go to run. However, before he can turn back to Muscular, the purple demon crashes into Deku's turn back, painfully stunning him. "Trying to leave the party so soon? That's bad etiquette, water boy!" cackles Muscular, still standing atop Deku. He then launches at Koda with immense speed. Koda dives to the side and is blown back by Muscular's shockwave, painfully slamming into a tree. Muscular quickly gets up and moves to finish Koda off, when suddenly Deku comes from the side, driving his elbow into Muscular's liver with extraordinary force. This causes the purple gargoyle to spurt up blood and go flying back. Invincible looks back at Koda and sees that he's clearly dazed, probably concussed. Looking back towards Muscular, all Deku sees is the palm of Muscular's hand. As his head is grabbed, he's punched in the gut and slammed into the ground. "Keep your head in the game or you'll lose it, boy!" yells Muscular, pinning Invincible to the ground before stomping on his head, grinding it into the earth. "Enough!" screams Izuku as he hammer fists the side of Muscular's leg, causing it to buckle. He then erupts from the ground, landing a flying bicycle kick to Muscular's jaw, the creature going flying back once again. Not taking his eyes off Muscular, Invincible stands in front of Koda and talks to him. "Koda, can you hear me?" Yes. I can hear you. I feel really dizzy," he says as he stands up, but immediately loses his equilibrium and falls to his knees, vomiting. "Listen, Koda, I need you to stay awake. You're concussed, so there's no way you'll make it back to camp without me. I need you to be brave and hang in there. I won't let him get you," Deku assures the boy. "Bold words," says Muscular as he emerges from the rubble he had been buried under. "I've been playing with you up till this point, but now I see you won't take this seriously unless I make you." As he says this, his body begins to pulse. His pale lavender purple skin then becomes pulled taut as his muscles begin to bulge. Then, pulled to its limit, the sickly flesh begins to rip open, exposing the velvety purple muscles underneath that give him his purple hue. His muscle fibers grow more and more as he practically triples in size. Seeing this, Deku is taken aback for a moment, disgusted by the villain's abilities, but he steels himself and jettisons at Muscular, both hands extended in fists as he slams into the muscle-bound freak, but Muscular doesn't budge. "The hell?" Deku says just before Muscular brings down both his hands on Deku, gorilla slamming the boy's face into the ground. Not letting up, he grabs Deku by his ankle and slams into just about everything around them, swinging the hero like a rag doll. Deku can feel these hits. He curls down and repeatedly bashes Muscular's knuckles, causing the monster to release him, sending him flying into a pile of boulders. "Stay down for a minute while I deal with the boy," Muscular tauntingly says as he makes his way over to the downed Koda. The little boy tried to crawl away before Muscular steps on his foot, completely crushing it. This causes Koda to scream out in agony, tears streaming down his face. No running away for you. I've got a quota to meet, and I just can't let what your parents did to me slide. Out of all the memories I still have left, losing my eye is still a rage-inducing one. Koda whimpers as Muscular reaches down, grabbing the boy's head and slowly squeezing. Not knowing what else to do, the boy uses his quirk, spraying Muscular in the face.
Ugh! You stupid brat! Just lay down and take it! It'll all be over soon!
Muscular spits, pausing his crushing for a moment to insult the child. But this buys Deku enough time to come out of the boulder pile, bloody and bruised, but rearing to fight. Deku slam tackles Muscular, causing him to lose his grip on Koda. Invincible doesn't even look back for Koda.
Stay away from him!
He yells as he picks up speed, tearing up the forest as the two of them slam through the trees.
Looks like someone's still got some fight left in him! There's still time to go mend that!
Muscular taunts before Invincible abruptly stops, letting Muscular go, slamming into the side of the mountain. Before Muscular can react, Invincible speed blitzes him, uppercutting his jaw, causing a spurt of blood to spray from his mouth, lifting him off the ground. Invincible then hits a 3-piece combo on Muscular's gut and chest, finishing it off by floating over Muscular and flying axe-kicking his head into the ground. Deku lands on the ground, breathing heavily, but recomposing himself, when suddenly, Muscular springs up, punching Deku in the gut. Deku can feel his ribs shatter and guts rupture. This is the first real punch Muscular has thrown, and it causes a ginormous crater to form from the impact alone, not to mention the trail of destruction left in Invincible's wake. Muscular super jumps towards Invincible, intercepting his flight path, and double kick pile driving Invincible into the ground. They come to a halt where Deku sits stunned for a moment. Muscular grabs him by the hair and begins to talk.
They hyped you up like you were some kind of ungodly monster. They even juiced me up for this fight. But I'm severely disappointed. I don't even want to finish you off. There'd be no satisfaction. But, alas, I can't disobey,
Muscular says as he wraps his hand around Invincible's throat, squeezing. Deku grits his teeth as he feels himself losing consciousness.
It's a shame, really. Guess you weren't invincible after all. I'm deeply dissatisfied. But I want you to know I'll cheer right up. Because after I'm done with you, I'm gonna go back and kill that kid. Then, I'm gonna go into the main camp and slaughter every hero and student there.
Muscular muses psychotically. Hearing this, Invincible feels strength running through his veins as he grips either side of Muscular's hand and wrenches it apart. For a moment, he completely loses control and literally rips Muscular's hand in half, down to his forearm, his mangled thumb and forefinger dangling from the bone like a banana peel.
I won't let you!
Invincible cries as Muscular slightly backs off, looking down at his mangled hand.
Looks like someone wasn't using their foot.
Muscular goes to say before Invincible punches him in the face so hard that if it were played in slow motion, his face would look like it was wrapped around Invincible's fist. Instantly, Muscular feels his head pulling the rest of his body behind him, causing whiplash, but that's the least of his problems. The entire left side of his face was now missing teeth. His jaw was hanging loose, and Invincible had punched him so hard, the skin on his face had been completely rubbed away via friction, leaving gushing wounds on his face in the shape of the boy's fist. Muscular looks up after crashing into a giant tree, stopping his momentum. Before he can even inhale a single breath, Deku is on top of him, his speed alone sending a shockwave through the forest.
You piece of shit! And I'm done with you! You'll I die painfully.
Muscular gets out of his barely functional jaw. He goes to punch Deku, but the boy effortlessly dodges, grabbing Muscular's arm and uppercutting his elbow, causing it to bend backwards, the bone sticking out of where the joint should be.
Stop threatening my friends!
Deku yells as he Hulk slams Muscular back into the ground as he tries to stand up. Muscular now just throwing out threats left and right, only further riling up Deku. Deku continues to pound on Muscular, ripping and crushing much of his muscle fibers before they can grow more to replace them. Muscular then winds up his legs and delivers a powerful double kick to Deku's gut, sending him crashing away once more. When he looks back, he sees Muscular super jumping like the Hulk towards the main camp. Feeling his broken bones now more than ever, Invincible winces, but he braces himself, then blasts towards Muscular. He hadn't realized it, but their fight had slowly been getting closer and closer to the camp. Muscular lands in the middle of the attack that the other villains were doing, with Spinner jumping back in surprise. And in a sort of desperate look, he grabs the closest student he can, sending Tiger flying away with a powerful shoulder bash. He pins Tetsu to the ground with his foot before he can react, and turns around, seeing Invincible land. Everyone stares at the bloodied and enraged Deku.
Remember what I promised you, hero! Don't come any closer, or I'll pop this boy's head like a grape!
Yells the muscle-bound freak. Invincible stands ready to move at the drop of a hat. Any opening and he could blitz Muscular.
You're gonna listen here, boy. I'm gonna crush your skull here in front of all these people, and you're gonna let me. Unless you want all these kids to meet the same fate,
demands Muscular.
To hell with that!
Tetsu yells, hardening to steel. Muscular is taken by surprise as he tries to stomp the life out of the boy. The metal starts to warp and creak, but it's enough time for Deku to blitz Muscular, double hammer fisting the side of his head, causing Muscular to drop Tetsu, who unhardens with large purple bruises across his entire upper chest and neck. Muscular gets up quickly and lunges for another student, a meat shield, but Invincible is too fast for him. He beats down on Muscular.
I won't let you lay a finger on any of them!
He yells as he begins to lose it on Muscular, no longer holding back any of his strength. The blows of him beating down on Muscular's face cause shockwaves that send everyone else in the vicinity flying back. Muscular still has some strength left, and he punches at Invincible, causing him to reel in pain before coming back at Muscular twice as hard. He sits there, beating on the half-conscious Muscular, wailing on him like there's no tomorrow. Invincible! Stop! Cries a feminine voice from behind. Deku recognizes Ochako's voice, and he stops beating. There's this ringing sensation Deku feels throughout his whole body. He pauses for a moment, then looks at his hands. Then Muscular, whose every breath seemed to be pained and bloody. Deku takes a step back, his anger subsiding. Now he looks around him. Everyone is staring at him. He then turns all the way around to see Ochako. You beat him! You saved us! Everything's gonna be alright, she says as she alone approaches the purple blood-soaked boy. Deku stands there for a moment. I'm sorry. He was just... Deku goes to say. I know! We all saw. He was going to kill Tetsu, but he's in no shape to fight now. Your adrenaline was just making you go wild, she assures him. Yeah, Deku says to himself, wanting to believe that, rather than acknowledge the fact that he nearly killed Muscular. Granted, he's practically a living corpse already after becoming a Nomu, but he seemed to have a lot more personality than the last monster Deku fought. He thinks about what his father would say. Omni-Man probably would have told Deku to kill him. Deku sighs, thinking to himself, he won't ever do that. He's not like his father. Deku, we're still under attack. Do you know... Starts Uraraka. Oh my god, Koda, Deku says, interrupting Ochako. I'm sorry. I need to find him. I'll be back, I promise, Deku says as he flies off to find Koda. It wasn't particularly hard considering the amount of damage Muscular and him had caused in their fight. As he's landing to pick up Koda, he can feel his adrenaline wearing off and the pain starts to increase. He can feel his shattered ribs, broken arm, shin, and collarbone, but he doesn't need any of those to fly. While flying, Koda drifts in and out of consciousness. Invincible, Koda mumbles out of his eyes half open. Shh! Don't talk. You need to save your strength. Everything's gonna be alright. I beat that monster. He can't get you now. You saved me? Why? Because I was the only one who could. Because you needed me. Because it's my responsibility. Thank you. Koda trails off, falling unconscious again. Deku makes it back to camp, dropping Koda off at the medic, before collecting himself, then going back into the forest to stop any other villains. However, he doesn't find much of anything. It seems like his fight with Muscular had gone on too long, and now most of the students were returning to camp, having survived their encounters with the villains. Well, all but one. "Where's Bakugo?" Deku asks Aizawa. "I'm sorry, Midoriya, but it looks like the villains were able to kidnap him. Todoroki said he saw it all go down." Deku feels like the world is zooming out from him. He completely loses focus on anything else, Aizawa had to say, and starts to blame himself. Maybe if he tried harder when Muscular first attacked, maybe if he was faster, Bakugo would still be with them. Deku shudders, thinking about what they could be doing to him. He fears the worst, that they're torturing him, or worse still, that they might be turning him into one of those Nomu creatures. Deku mulls over these ideas as he sits in his hospital bed later that day, thinking about everything he could have done differently. At this point, he's fully recovered from his wounds with the help of Recovery Girl. He then gets a call on his phone. It's his mom. She's probably heard about the attack and is calling to see if he's okay. Deku thinks that a talk with his mom would probably be good right now, to help him clear his conscience. But when he picks up the phone, it's not her voice that comes out. A venomous and evil tone emanates from the device.
"Hello, Izuku. Or should I call you Invincible?"
All for One says through the phone. "Who are you? And what did you do with my mom?" Deku demands.
"Relax. You've got some real anger problems, you know. I mean, what you did to Muscular was truly barbaric. Maybe you and your father aren't so different after all. But don't worry, she's alright. In fact, both her and your friend are both going to be perfectly safe. So long as you listen to what I have to say."
All for One muses. "You've Bakugo too? What do you want?" Deku spits.
"It's very simple. I want you to come and meet me. Don't tell anyone, don't bring anyone. If you do, both will die as soon as I know the truth. There is no room for debate,"
the evil man says plainly. "I need to know you're 100% telling the truth. If anything happens to either of them, Deku goes to say.
"Let's spare the vulgarity. I'm well aware of your capabilities, and let me just say that while I am impressed, you're still no threat to me. I cannot guarantee you anything, but you have no other options. This call is getting lengthy, so I'm going to end it and send a message to this device with the meet location and any further instructions. And remember, come alone or they both die,"
the Dark Lord says in a serious tone. "Fine," Deku says through gritted teeth. He doesn't like the sound of the situation, but like the voice said, he really doesn't have any other options. Following All for One's instructions, Deku finds himself in the Camino ward in a dark factory setting. He stands waiting and ready, wearing his hero suit, and ready to fight. He hears a pair of steps coming down from the hallway, and here comes Shigaraki, his hand wrapped around the back of Bakugo's neck, ready to decay the boy at any moment.
"You idiot! You actually came? This was clearly a trap!"
yells the ill-tempered boy.
"I had to,"
starts Deku.
"All right, shut it. This isn't a meeting, it's a hostage exchange,"
Shigaraki interrupts. "You're right, and you're one short. Where is my mother?" Deku demands.
"Whoa, hold your horses, hero. I wouldn't take that tone with me, given the current circumstances,"
sneers Shigaraki. "This isn't what we agreed to. You said that both of them would be released," insists Invincible.
"First of all, I didn't say anything. And second of all, she'll go free, but only after you're secured,"
insists the gray-haired villain. "I'm secured?" questions Invincible.
"That's right, hero. We're gonna imprison you and run some lovely experiments on you. You'll be a living petri dish. Isn't that nice?"
jokes Shigaraki.
Where is my mom?
Deku says, his patience running thin.
She's just in the back. We'll trade off the explosion boy first, and when we have you secure, she'll be released as well.
Shigaraki repeats.
Don't fall for it!
Yells Bakugo again.
Hold your tongue, Blondie. We still might kill you just for the fun of it.
Shigaraki threatens. But my mom is here? Deku reasserts.
Yeah. Just ask Spikehead.
Shigaraki says.
Yes, she is. But don't think for a second they'll actually let any of us go.
Bakugo insists once more.
One more outburst like that, and you're dead, kid.
Shigaraki declares angrily. Let's just get this over with, Deku says as he walks towards Shigaraki. He wraps his hand around Deku's throat before letting go of Bakugo. But unbeknownst to Shigaraki, as Bakugo and Izuku get close, Izuku quickly crushes the bind on Bakugo's quirk suppression cuffs. They both don't acknowledge what just happened, playing it off cool. Bakugo walks outside of the building. When Deku and Shigaraki make it to the back, Deku's heart skips a beat, his fear and anxiety reaching a new level. He sees his mom being surrounded by two Nomu, ready and waiting for the drop of a hat to kill her. "Mom!" cries Deku, causing the Nomu to twitch. "My sweet boy! No, please don't do this. Just let them kill me. I couldn't live with myself knowing what you're doing to protect me," pleads Inko. "I can't do that, Mom," Deku says assertively. She looks down at the ground, her tears pouring. She knows she can't convince Deku not to. "Release her, and I'm all yours. I promise," says Deku courageously.
I'm thinking... no.
Shigaraki says coyly.
No? What do you mean no? Let her go now, or...
Deku starts.
Or what? Move an inch, and I stick the Nomu on her.
Shigaraki instantly retorts. "If anything happens to her, no one in this building will leave alive," Deku says coldly.
All bark and no bite. I've seen the footage of you. You're too afraid to kill. You don't even use your full strength because you're oh so afraid of becoming your father. Cry me a river. But no, I think we'll be keeping her as insurance,"
insists the villain. "Then you leave me no choice," Deku says. It's at that point when Bakugo bursts through the ceiling, having been listening in from the roof ever since he had quickly dispatched the Nomu outside. The Nomu are taken off guard and unable to see through the smoke of the explosion. They can't see Inko. In that time, Bakugo goes down using an AP shot on one of the Nomu and tackling Inko away from their range. Shigaraki goes to put his fifth finger on Invincible, but gets speed blitzed, having the tables turn in a microsecond. Now he hangs off the ground by his neck.
"Master!"
Shigaraki is able to croak out before a black goo-like substance emerges from his mouth, enveloping both him and Invincible, leaving Bakugo to save Inko from the two Nomu, now following their programming to kill Inko. We cut to All For One, who had just teleported the pair to him. He looks down at Invincible and Shigaraki.
Old boy,
he commands.
You were the voice on the phone,
Yells Deku enraged.
That's right. And if you know what's good for you,
he goes to say before getting blitzed by Invincible, tackling him through the building and out of the factory they had been in. All For One uses one of his quirks to send an unnatural force at Invincible, sending him away from him.
Don't try it! You think those were the only two people I had prepared to kill? Behave or you'll lose everyone,
says All For One, but Invincible doesn't seem to be in a listening mood, as he recovers from the force blast and instantly flies back at All For One. The Lord of Chaos is able to dodge out of the way.
Damn it, boy! I'll kill you and your mother and everyone you love,
yells All For One as he appears behind Invincible, stabbing a large drill-like spike through his shoulder. Deku yells in agony before headbutting All For One into the ground, creating a giant crater, causing part of the surrounding buildings to collapse. He goes in for another punch, but his fist is grabbed by the Dark Lord, as he now begins to combine all of his strength-enhancing and multiplier quirks to match Invincible. He winds back another punch and absolutely clobbers Invincible with it. This punch causes such a large shockwave that the entire surrounding block is flattened. It's at this point when the fight starts getting more attention. All for One intercepts Invincible's flight and grabs the back of his head before kneeing the boy in the face, breaking his nose. Invincible reels in pain before getting jabbed in the gut and violently elbowed in the jaw, sending him flying into the ground.
You young and dumb idiot! Did you really think you could stop me? How arrogant! To think that Muscular was the strongest thing we had. How foolish!
Scoffs All for One. It's at this point when the media begins covering what's happening as the choppers begin surrounding the crater. The newswoman instantly recognizes Invincible.
It seems like the hero Invincible is fighting an incredibly strong foe. Some correspondents believe that his father has returned to finish what he started, says the reporter.
Ah, good. An audience. What better way to announce the resurrection of the Lord of Chaos than by killing the world's strongest hero?
As he monologues, he smashes Invincible's head into the ground over and over as he taunts him.
After I kill you, I'm going to find all your friends and make sure to turn them into Nomu. Painfully. I'll make sure that part of their brain stays intact, and I'll take great pleasure in pulling your mother's organs out. It's always the sweetest feeling when they think they're saved, only to die a horrifyingly painful death. The look in their eyes alone is enough to keep me going for days.
Hearing this, Invincible musters enough strength to get free, now floating above All for One.
Oh, did that make you mad? Is somebody ready for round 2?
He jokes before Invincible lets out a cry of rage and tackles All for One into the existing crater, only expanding it more. As the battle rages on, the world watches Invincible fight another unimaginable foe, creating huge amounts of damage. Invincible is staying in the game. He's keeping up with All for One, but just barely, slowly getting worn down.
You know, maybe I won't kill you immediately. Maybe I'll keep you around just long enough to watch everyone you love die in the most horrible way possible. You'll make a good example for my new empire, and for anyone else who dares dissent.
All for One further threatens, feeling the rage in his heart burning more than ever. Invincible lands blow after blow, but it's not enough. He begins to tire and gets absolutely smashed by All for One, getting pinned against the ground once more. All for One stomps Deku's knee, making the leg useless. As Deku screams out, the Dark Lord can't help himself but to laugh as the whole of Japan watches Invincible get dismantled.
You know, I don't actually need to keep you alive. Your body would provide me with enough blood for everything I could possibly need,
he says, grinding his heel into Deku's crushed leg, causing the boy to cry out in pain. Why do you need me so badly? Yells out Deku as he rolls over to face his opponent, who quickly stomps his gut.
Haven't you figured it out by now? I need your blood to make my Nomu stronger than ever. You remember your good friend Muscular? He was just the first in a long line of perfected Nomu using your blood. And once I have you, I'll have killed 2 birds with 1 stone. I also plan on distributing it as a quirk-enhancing drug. I'll call it Invincible,
he says, laughing to himself as he torments Invincible. My blood? You're using my blood to make those monsters? I won't let... Deku goes to say before getting punched in the face by All for One.
You won't what? You're too afraid to even fight me with your full power. You are weak and everything wrong with Hero Society. Your lineage is cursed, and no matter how much you pretend to be a savior, the people of this planet will always see you as a monster, an alien conqueror. You know, I am truly and genuinely disgusted by you. And I will take great pleasure in putting you out of your misery. Eventually.
All For One says as he stomps on Invincible's throat, slowly crushing it. Hearing all this, Deku's heart pounds as he feels the weight of his throat growing. He feels his own strength grow. He launches out of the ground, hooking All For One by the top of his mouth and throwing him at Mach speed before intercepting in the air, tackling him into the ground, causing the crater they were just in to triple in size, pushing back all the news helicopters. At this point, heroes have flooded the scene, but don't dare approach the two fighting, mainly focused on evacuating and rescuing people.
Finally using your full strength, eh? I'll admit that one hurt, but it won't be.
All For One says, standing up, charging up a devastating punch. Before he could even finish his sentence, Invincible was on him again, roundhouse kicking him in the gut, sending All For One airborne once more. Invincible remains silent, completely and wholly focused on the fight. All For One is able to regain his composure, and as Invincible goes in for a strong uppercut, hammer fists the boy down into the ground, following it up by using a force quirk, pulling Deku back and into a nasty right cross. Cutting to Bakugo, he can hear large crashes coming from far off in the city, and he can only assume it's Deku. And as much as he wants to go help his friend, he too is similarly pressed as he fights to protect Deku's mom from two Nomu. These two Nomu were much stronger than the other one he had quickly dispatched outside, clearly meant to provide protection against Invincible if he had decided to be less civil. Fighting one of these monsters would have been hard, but two at once, while protecting Deku's mom, it was almost impossible. Inko was huddled in the corner of the room, blocked from making it to the exit by the fight going on between Bakugo and the Nomu. The one silver lining for Bakugo is that the Nomu are primarily focused on killing Deku's mom. It meant that their primary directive wasn't to kill him, which gave him enough of an edge to stay in the fight. But his silver lining is a double-edged sword, as he can't get the monsters to fight him anywhere else, and releasing his full firepower could risk Inko.
Inko, cover your ears! It might get loud and hot!
Bakugo yells out to the green-haired woman. She jolts hearing her name, but composes herself enough to follow the hero boy's request. As she does this, Bakugo falls back somewhat, making sure to be between her and the monsters before putting his wrists together and facing the palms of his hands out towards the creatures. He releases a giant but directionally controlled blast that sends the Nomu flying back, hopefully for long enough that Bakugo can get Inko out of here. Inko can feel the pressure waves smack her like a sack of potatoes, but despite being rattled, is uninjured.
Listen, they're after you. We need to get out of here and somewhere safe. Those things aren't going to be down for long. Hold on to my back, and no matter what, do not let go,
Bakugo says, somewhat demeaningly, but efficiently. Inko does as she is told, once more, tightly wrapping her arms around the boy's chest. As she does, a crash can be heard over the low rumbling of the distant battle. It looks like the Nomu have recovered and are booking it straight for Inko once more.
Hold on! It's gonna be a bumpy ride!
Bakugo announced as he rockets out of the building through the hole he used to enter it. He's going at a fast pace, but thinking that they've escaped the Nomu, he relaxes somewhat, instead of putting all of his juice into the escape. He continues to fly before he begins to hear a thumping sound, and it's getting louder. Inko looks back, then sharply inhales.
Katsuki! They're coming!
She says nervously.
What? They can fly?
Bakugo yells before looking down behind him. And no, it turns out they cannot fly. Instead, the two monsters were jumping through the city like the Hulk, slowly catching up with the escaping pair.
Oh,
mutters the boy, exasperated.
We need to lose line of sight with them. But first, did they tag you with anything?
Questions Bakugo.
Tag me? Yes, tag you. I was sure those Nomu wouldn't have been able to follow us after we escaped. But it's like they're homing in on us. I think that skinhead freak might be tracking you somehow.
The crashing grows louder, and Bakugo knows he doesn't have much time before he's back to square one.
I'm gonna crank up the juice to lose line of sight. When we do, I need you to search your body for any new scars, ticks, or anything out of the ordinary.
Bakugo asserts, the tension in his voice rising before he shuts up and puts all of his focus into speed. The explosions drown out the Nomu, and eventually the pair land on top of a tall building out of sight. Bakugo collapses to the ground from exhaustion, wheezing as he catches his breath.
Oh my god! Katsuki, are you alright?
Inko goes to say, kneeling down by the boy.
Check for the tracker now before those things catch up, or else I really won't be fine.
Bakugo yells as he rolls over onto his side, trying to regain his strength. Inko lets out a yip before complying, running her hands along her body searching for anything new, before her hand rubs across a somewhat sore bump just behind her right shoulder blade.
Oh my god! I think I found it!
She cries. Bakugo's eyes widen, and he musters the strength to stand on his feet.
Where?
He questions, his breath not fully caught. Inko pulls her shirt to the side slightly, revealing the lump on her back. There's a clear incision where something had been inserted. Wordlessly, Bakugo tears off part of his shirt, balling it up and handing it to Inko.
Bite down on this. I'm no edge shot, so this surgery isn't exactly going to be painless,
says Bakugo, preparing his right hand. Inko shudders, but upon hearing the thumping of the Nomu start to become audible again, readies herself.
Just do it! I've given birth! This can't be worse!
Inko says, somewhat hyping herself up. Hearing this, Bakugo holds out his forefinger, middle finger, and thumb in a sort of triangle around the lump. Swiftly, he pushes hard, slightly opening the wound. Then, with precision, from his fingertips, he releases a potent but focused explosion into the wound, chunking the device out, cauterizing the wound, and keeping the damage to a minimum. Inko grunts into the cloth as he does the operation, but it's over as soon as it started. Instantly, the thumping stops. It's like the programming of the Nomu just completely shut off. The pair let out a sigh of relief before the largest crash of the night can be heard in the distance, with several skyscrapers falling. It's reminiscent of a horrible terror attack, but both people standing atop the rooftop know who it is.
Izuku,
mutters Inko.
Okay, that's one problem dealt with, but we need to get you to the police, and then I'm going to help Deku,
Bakugo says assertively. Inko reluctantly nods, not wanting the boy to go into harm's way, but not able to muster herself to tell him not to help her son. She lets Bakugo take her to the police station, which is practically empty with all of the officers responding to the Invincible fight. Bakugo makes sure that they know Inko is here, but leaves as soon as possible. This is just like when Omni-Man attacked, when he was too slow and too powerless to do anything. He couldn't help his friend before, but now things would be different, Bakugo thinks to himself as he makes his way to the escalating fight. Finally, the crater comes into view. It looks absolutely horrific. There are collapsed buildings, dead bodies, and heroes scrambling like ants to save anyone else in the hazard zones. Bakugo doesn't lose his focus though, as he makes out two figures in the middle. He can see one with disproportionate limbs shooting out a bright sort of energy at someone writhing on the ground. Bakugo knows that's Deku and cranks up the speed even more. Getting closer, Bakugo sees All For One frying Deku with some sort of black electrical quirk. In an instant, and without even thinking, Bakugo moves with such precision and skill, even from him, and releases the largest explosion he's ever mustered on All For One.
Get away from him!
Yells Bakugo as he feels the pain surging through his arms. He releases the massive blast. Of course, All For One couldn't hear Bakugo over the sound of the explosion, but he gets the idea. All For One goes flying back, his face and upper body being cracked and charcoal-like. He lets out an indignant and agonized cry, shifting to a rageful tone as he looks up, seeing Invincible collapsed and recovering, and Bakugo standing in front of him.
Ew!
All For One yells, speed blitzing Bakugo, stabbing him with one of his quirks, similar to Moonfish, and suspending the boy in the air.
I'll kill you for that, and then I'll kill your friend next!
Yells All For One as he goes to disembowel Bakugo, but soundlessly and so fast that no one, not Bakugo, All For One, or even the news crew with their aerial view, was fast enough to comprehend Deku's movement. Deku tackles All For One away from Bakugo towards a forest, taking them far away from the city. All For One gets flung forward, slamming into tree after tree. He goes reeling, but recovers before Deku is able to land another hit, slamming Deku into the ground, choking him.
You know, this won't end until I kill you, your friends, and family. That is the only way this ends. Getting angry won't suddenly make you stronger.
All For One taunts, but that's the final straw. The pain, adrenaline, and sheer rage Deku is feeling right now causes him to shove All For One off of him before speed blitzing him.
Stop threatening my family!
He cries, their fists collide in a colossal shockwave, and All For One's arm completely explodes, with Deku's being fractured. All For One looks at his mangled arm in shock, but before he can react, he's punched again, this time in the chest. Every bone in his body cracks to pieces, with his lungs and even heart getting ruptured. He goes flying back faster than the speed of sound, but Deku gets behind his trajectory, punching him in the face even harder, sending him flying upward.
You have no idea how much I've been holding back!
He yells out, intercepting the Dark Lord once more, hammer fist pile driving into his back, his spine completely snapping. He lands on All For One, slamming into him with both feet, further driving him into the ground and sending out a massive shockwave. He then sits over All For One's body and begins wailing on him.
I'll never let anyone, ever hurt my family!
He cries out, letting out a guttural and primal scream. He continues to bash in All For One's head, each punch sounding more juicy and painful than the last. He continues just wailing on him for over a minute straight. Even after his arms fall limp and his breathing stops, Invincible is absolutely cutting loose, just pouring every bit of his pent-up rage and strength into each punch, all landing harder than the last. The mountains and earth shake. Birds and bugs go flying in the air, looking like the plagues, darkening the sky. The trees and surrounding area have been completely flattened for nearly a mile surrounding the pair, as Invincible's punches send nuclear bomb-sized shockwaves through the forest, until finally he looks down at what used to be All For One, his upper chest and head looking more like spilled spaghetti and pumpkin guts than a person. His eyes bulge, realizing what he's done. He stumbles away from the corpse.
I didn't mean to. He made me do it. I didn't want to, but he made me.
Deku tries to justify to himself. And as he turns to look at All For One once more, he says, I thought you were stronger, before collapsing to the ground and holding his head in his hands.
Okay.
That is where I'm going to end it. At least this part. And, oh man, my voice is cooked. I hope you guys enjoyed this part. I tried to make it less talky. I kind of did not like how the last part had so much talking and exposition. So I hope I've sort of streamlined that a little bit. I also wanted to deliver some more brutal fights, and I think that I succeeded. But I guess you guys are really the judge of that, so why don't you tell me in the comments what you thought of the video? Any ideas for future what ifs? It doesn't have to be My Hero Academia. I'm like a super nerd. So if there's like a comic series or something, I'm probably into it. So just present me with some ideas if you have any, and if you feel like it, maybe hit the like and subscribe. But I think that is it. I just want to say thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next part. Bye bye.